Every family dynamic is different, but if they are making comments like that, these are usually invitations that they're ready to start having a deeper conversation. It just may take, don't expect it to happen overnight. It may very well happen over a period of time.
Today's guest's life was changed forever when her mother died from complications of Alzheimer's disease, and now she's pouring her passion for helping seniors and their families into the senior living industry. Hi, I'm Helen Bauer, and this is the Heart of Hospice podcast. The Heart of Hospice podcast is your source for compassionate and informative discussions about hospice and end-of-life care. I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse with over 15 years of experience. Whether you're a caregiver, someone with a serious illness, or you simply need to know more about hospice care, this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore all the aspects of hospice, from the details of caregiving to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of end-of-life journeys. For more resources and to connect with me, visit theheartofhospice.com and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Keep listening for today's episode.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest, and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services. When you need information about hospice, Hospice Navigation Services is here to help. An expert navigator will answer your questions about end-of-life care and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care. It's your journey. We can be your guide. Visit hospicenavigation.com to schedule your hospice navigation session today.
Amanda Bailey is a certified assisted living manager and a certified dementia practitioner. While working as a director of assisted living and memory care communities, she gained firsthand knowledge of how senior living communities operate, and she shares that knowledge with the families she helps. Her organization, Help for My Parents, recognizes that the assistance of an experienced senior living advisor is critical when someone is searching for long-term care. Amanda is dedicated to providing families with help in making the best decision possible when choosing care for their loved ones. You can find Amanda Bailey at helpformyparents.com. This is a really deep dive into caregiving and caregiving situations with Amanda Bailey. She tells her caregiving story of caring for her mom, who had Alzheimer's disease. The workbook Amanda has created has a section to help families know what cues to look for in their family members, including things that they might say and behaviors they might exhibit and what they might really mean. We talked about how difficult it is to choose the right living situation for a family member. The workbooks are a really great tool to help make those decisions easier. We discussed the promises that people make that may create tremendous guilt when their person needs to be in a care facility. We're deep diving into the emotional impacts of being an end-of-life caregiver in this episode, so stay with me. There's a lot to learn. Amanda, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast. It's great to have you with me.
Hi, Helen. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to hit the ground running.
Okay.
And this is an episode that caregivers, whether you're a paid caregiver or a family caregiver, you're going to benefit from this information and the product, the booklet that Amanda's company has. So we're going to start off with your caregiving experience, which was a huge event for you in your life.
It was.
But I want you to use 5 words to describe your caregiving experience with your mom at the end of your life.
It was certainly heartbreaking. At times it was exhausting, very humbling.
Mm.
It ultimately became very purposeful and I and loving. That's one of the key words. I don't think you can do it without that.
I like that. What a nice scope. It's heartbreaking at the same time, but it's still rewarding. I think that's the both and. You can have the sadness along with the joy that comes with being with somebody you care about.
And having purpose evolve from it felt meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing gift. Okay. So your mom had Alzheimer's disease.
She did. She has been gone. Gosh, this is 2026, so she's been gone since 2003. So it's been a while. She was diagnosed in early 2000, like right as January of 2000. And if you can tick back and remember 26 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot. Some people were candidates for research, but many people were not. Hers was very fast progressing. So from diagnosis to the time she passed was 3 years, which is, hindsight tells we saw some signs. We didn't know what they were, but certainly hindsight did that. But it was, I was young. Without giving away my age, I was in my middle 30s when she was diagnosed. So, it was not expected. I was raising babies, really way too young to be without my mom. And it, the journey was exhausting. And it was the guilt that you hold and I know from many years of talking to caregivers, that's the one that people will struggle with the most, of being torn in so many different directions, to be a wife, to be a mom, to be a daughter, to be an employee for somebody. You're pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah. So I want to touch on something you said about the early signs, hindsight, thinking back, which I think a lot of caregivers for someone who has Alzheimer's disease or dementias, that they look back and they think, oh, we should have, right?
Yeah.
What were things that you think back now and you realize, oh, that was a sign right there and we just missed it?
There were some real interesting ones. And again, we weren't paying attention. She slowly gravitated away from playing bridge with her friends that she had played bridge with for 40 years. She just kind of stopped going, oh, I'm too busy. We're traveling more and I just don't, they've had to get a sub for me so many times. I'm just going to let the sub take over. She could rationalize it away in a way that we didn't think much about it,
So she never said I'm having trouble keeping up with the game or anything like that.
Yeah. The other one that I think stands out the most in hindsight for me, I grew up in one house my whole life, and they were preparing to downsize and do more travel, but have a smaller home that they didn't have as much upkeep with. And my mother, who was one of the most organized people I had ever met, she could not wrap her brain around putting some stuff in storage, like, boxes of stuff that she just wasn't ready to get rid of, but didn't really have a spot for it in the new place. And so she she was really struggling with how to do this. And I kind of put it off to, well, you haven't moved in 40 years, of course
Right.
you're
It's
having
an
trouble doing
overwhelming
this.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I went over there one day and I was like, hey, Mom, let me help you with some of these boxes. And I got out some index cards and I said, what if we just you load the box, I'm going to label what you put in there, and we'll tape it to the outside of the box. And I mean, I literally had to walk her through this. And at the time, I did that. When I look back at the time, I did not see it. But when I look back, to me, that was probably the biggest warning sign, because that was so not my mom. My mom was president of booster clubs. She was the person who organized their high school reunion every year for decades.
Yeah.
And so she was the uber organized person. So for her not to be able to do this was so out of character, but it still didn't click with me,
Well, but
you
now
know?
she was living with your dad, right?
Well,
So had your dad picked up on anything and said anything to you?
no, he had not at the time.
Mm.
The time where it really he really started questioning it was they had taken a trip. They had an RV, and they had taken an extended trip up to the Pacific Northwest. Had never made it all the way up to Canada on that side before, and they really wanted to go check it out. And they came back unexpectedly, like a week early. And he called me when they got back and they said, we're back. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting y'all. He goes, yeah, I need to talk to you about something.
Oh.
And it was that trip that when he took her out of her element and took her, even though they were very experienced traveling in their RV, they had done it for 10 years at that point. It somehow just, it really kind of kicked things off for her.
Yeah. It changed her routine and
It
her
changed her
environment.
routine so
Yeah.
much that she really couldn't handle it, and she couldn't mask it, I guess is the best way to put
Mm-hmm.
it,
Yeah.
anymore.
With my mom, we used to call it dementia dodging.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, where you give these generic answers.
Mhm,
Yeah, and it's they don't know the answer, but they know enough to. My mom knew enough to sort of
yeah,
wing it
like
and
fake
get
it
away
till
with it. Yeah, yeah, fake it till they're convinced.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was probably, and if my dad saw a lot of the signs prior to that, he either dismissed it or just kind of was confused by it, probably more than anything.
Yeah.
But that trip really made it stand out enough where he said, something's not right here. Something's definitely not right.
Mm.
Then all the pieces start to fall in place. You start looking at the whole puzzle and you go, oh, okay.
Right, right. Then at some point when you make that connection, you fill in that piece and then everything else that's going on makes sense.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's no surprise she's having trouble with this. It really wasn't surprising that she couldn't figure out how to
Mhm.
box up everything and put it away.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No wonder and the other thing was she couldn't keep up with a new cell phone. She had gotten a
Oh,
cell phone. This is back at,
yeah.
early 2000s, late 90s even. So cell phones were just becoming a thing. I don't think she ever learned how to use that cell phone.
And they were simple, but they were still changing.
Correct.
Yeah,
And it was still different.
yeah,
She never quite grasped how to do that. So.
yeah. Those phones were so simple. I was having a little nostalgia moment there.
Exactly. We're incredibly simple compared to what we do now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have this fantastic workbook that you've got. I absolutely love this. Help for my parents. Help for my
Yeah.
parents. And you got it in digital form, you've got it in print, and it is a guide to in-home care. A
Correct.
workbook that helps people find the right care at the right time. It includes private duty, home health, hospice, because home care, in-home help,
Wherever you call home.
yeah,
Yeah.
wherever you call home. It's a workbook, and I like that because it gives some space for people to customize it, personalize it according to what they're going through.
Yeah.
So it has a section on recognizing when it's time to get help, which is perfect because that's really what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And you advise listening to your person. I've gotten away from using the term loved one because
Yeah.
not everybody we are taking care of is a loved one.
That's true. There's a lot of difficult relationships out there I have learned over time that it makes, the caregiving journey even more challenging.
Oh, yeah. Caregiving
Yeah.
gets messy. It
Yeah, it
certainly
does.
does. But so one of the things you advise in the booklet is listening to your person. It's a big deal. So here's a quote from the booklet. Maybe your loved one says things like, I don't want to be a burden. I just can't keep up anymore. I don't feel safe alone. And what you say is those aren't throwaway comments.
They are not.
They are quiet cries for help.
In some cases, they're big, giant, waving red flags.
Right. This is the guy with the fluorescent vest and the flashlights letting you know the plane's coming.
Holding you in.
So what kind of cues do you hear? You know what they're saying, but what cues are they actually communicating with comments like this?
Rarely is somebody going to come along and say, hey, I need an in-home caregiver, or I need hospice today, or I think it's time for me to go to live in assisted living.
Right.
So you have to kind of be, you have to be an inspector. You have to kind of read between the lines. You have to, figure out where these statements are coming from. And sometimes it's simple as saying things like, tell me why you feel that way. And let them tell you. You may have to revisit that conversation more than once. It may not all come out at once. You may have to assure them that I know you feel this way, but I'm here for you. Those kind of reassuring statements where it's not so obvious, but there's enough there for you to really kind of start digging into, and it can be things to open a conversation may take time. It may take, tell me why you feel that way. Like, should we maybe make an appointment with a doctor and have this conversation with with your doctor, mom? Is that something you feel comfortable doing? You may have to lead that direction, or lead in a way that, hey, how about if I call my sister and my brother and we have a family meeting about this? If every family dynamic is different, but if they are making comments like that, these are usually invitations that they're ready to start having a deeper conversation. It just may take, don't expect it to happen overnight. It may very well happen over a period of time.
Well, and they may not even know they're extending the invitation. This is
No.
whatever form they can communicate their confusion or distress or frustration with a situation.
Correct.
Yeah, I think it's important to listen. Do you think it's helpful to ask, did something happen? What situation is making you unhappy or fearful or anxious?
And they may not be able to tell you that whole thing. So,
Right.
Again, go back to that disarming, tell me what makes you feel that way.
Right.
Why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Those kind of conversations, you may have to read between the lines initially, to figure it out. It depends on who what your situation is with your person. I mean, if they have some more advanced dementia, this may be a very difficult journey for you to extract that information.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a heads up to don't wait for the crisis to happen either. And that's one of my big goals with my workbooks is let's think ahead. Let's not, whether it's the in-home book, or I also have a senior living book as well on how to search for senior living. Even if you're not there today, maybe start your homework. Start looking at these workbooks and reading through, and start exploring what kind of options are available for you, because that's critical as well. Because crisis mode is a bad place to make decisions.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely
Yeah,
is. And we realize time is a luxury when you are
time
a
is a luxury.
caregiver, especially sandwich caregivers that are also raising children, like what you did when your mother was
Yeah.
sick. And
hmm
but what we know is an ambulance is a terrible place to do advanced care planning, right?
That's a
Like you
really
said,
great way to put it.
yeah, a crisis is when you're having to be reactive.
Yeah.
And we also should point out that not everybody who has a neurodegenerative diagnosis like Alzheimer's or dementia will need another place to live.
That's correct. You can very successfully take it in a lot of cases. You can as a matter of fact, I would say even go far as say a vast majority of people can successfully care for a loved one at home.
Sure. Sure. Now, we're also not saying it's easy.
No, not saying it's easy, but the support systems, the right care, the right, doing your homework to make sure you have all the right things lined up and in place. Absolutely,
Yeah.
can be done.
Amanda and I are talking about the problem of making promises after the break.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services.
If you or someone you care about is dealing with a life-limiting illness, you need a guide. Hospice Navigation Services is here to help you get the best end-of-life care possible. We understand the importance of personalized, experienced support. Hospice navigators provide one-on-one support over the phone or through video calls to guide you every step of the way. They'll answer your questions, explain what hospice care looks like, and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. Whether you're planning ahead or you have an urgent need, Hospice Navigation Services helps you and your family understand your options for end-of-life care. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care and get answers to your questions. You don't have to go through this alone. You deserve compassionate support and guidance for your end-of-life experience. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. To book your hospice navigation session and receive your free guide to end-of-life care, visit our website at hospicenavigation.com. It's your journey. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. I remember reading a book. Kimberly Paisley wrote it, actually. Kimberly Williams, Brad Paisley's wife. Her mother had a form of dementia that was particularly troublesome at home. And
I think she had Lewy bodies, maybe.
I can't remember. It's been quite a while since I read the book, but they really struggled because they had to put her somewhere to live because she became physically aggressive with her husband, who was her primary caregiver, to the point where he was depressed and withdrawn and was really struggling mentally and emotionally, not just with the care of his wife.
Yeah, the stress of being a caregiver.
Yes. So much stress with this. And they had promised her mom that they would never put her anywhere, that they would never relocate her, and she would be able to live out the rest of her life at home. Well, that wasn't going to happen because she was not safe and her family wasn't safe. So these promises that we have a tendency to make when we are having those advanced care plan conversations, how would you tell a family to handle something like that?
Well, my family went through that. My dad and my mom had made a pact with each other that they wouldn't do that. And my dad really, that guilt of that promise was, it was equally as difficult as caring for her was. And my mom had started roaming away from home. She would walk out the door when he had really bad hearing, super bad hearing. He had worked for in the telecommunication business for years. That was his only job. He worked for AT&T from the time he was 17 until he retired.
Oh, wow.
And so he had really bad hearing from being in those really loud switch rooms and stuff. And he used to tell me he would fall asleep and leave his hand on her at night because if she moved, then maybe it would wake him up. Like, oh my gosh, Dad, you
That was
can't
his
sleep.
security system. That's
That
a
was his
really bad
security.
security system, Dad. It's like your mom throwing her arm across your chest or your neck.
Yes,
And the
for
old
yeah,
seatbelt. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm from the era where we didn't wear seatbelts.
Yeah, I am too. I think you and I are probably about the same age. And I remember,
Yeah,
you kind of get the clothesline effect from your mom
yeah,
if she has to
yes,
stop short. But yeah,
correct.
that's not a great seatbelt. So having your arm on your wife when she's sleeping is not the best.
Exactly. So not only was she roaming away from the house, she had an event where she roamed away. Thankfully, their little toy poodle roamed with her and barked until my dad found her. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay, we're done here. We're going to have to come up with another solution here, Dad. It's, either you got to get somebody in here because he just wouldn't hear when she or he would get distracted
Sure.
um, working on something, and then he'd look up and she'd be gone because that happens all the time. I mean, that's nothing. And you can go to the bathroom and they could disappear. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's when we had to start having the conversation about possibly living at home with her was not the best scenario for her or for him because he was starting to have AFib because of the stress, the caregiver stress that he was experiencing. And one of the things that I said to him, and I remember this very well, is like, and I did not say this to diminish the promise that was made because the promise was made in love and care and a commitment and a vow to take care of each other. Um, and I did not want to diminish that, but I looked at him and I said, Dad, you had no idea that this was the course of your life. This is what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And how could you have, even in your wildest imagination, you could not have pictured that this is what would have happened. And I think that helped break down that barrier a little bit and take some of the guilt off of him. I think he still wore a lot of that guilt, and I tried to do everything I could to help him with that, but it's just the spot where he was, and
Yeah.
there was no changing that. Um, I mean, he was still young when she passed away. I mean, she was 72 when she passed away, 72. She would have been 73 that year. And he didn't pass away until he was 87. So he had a lot of years after she passed away. And he moved in with us about a year after she passed away, my family, because he was lonely more
Yeah.
than anything.
Well, he lived for several years after she was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was very, very much an active part of our household. Like he mowed the grass. He those were things he loved to do. And he still played golf with his friends. And he would help me with the kids, like my girls did FFA and he'd have to run them out to the barns early in the morning or, and that sort of thing. And he loved being a part of our house and going to the kids' events and just all the things. I mean, he was very much a piece of our household. I always say he helped raise our children. And our dog
Nice.
abandoned us and took him. But I get
Well,
it.
that I think caregiving is unpredictable because all those possible scenarios,
Hmm.
it's just not possible to imagine every single one of them.
No.
And I hope it's not because it would be so anxiety causing. Amanda, when you and your dad realized that your mother needed a different living situation that was going to be healthy for both of them, what
Mhm.
was your mom's response to being moved? Because we know that folks with Alzheimer's and dementia, a lot of times they decline.
Yeah.
Their health declines when they get moved. What was your mom's response to being moved?
The old saying of if you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia.
Mm.
Um, and I have over the years now seen a lot of people as they move into communities that, I used to be an executive director of a memory care community. And then looking back, we didn't see a whole lot of change in my mom. And I don't know if that was because she was on the younger end. She was, like 69, 70 years old when she moved into the community. She was up and walking. She was a walker. She She lost verbal skills fairly early on, but she was she loved to just roam around and do things. There were some things that she was resistant to because it was mostly centered around the personal care that was provided, where it went from being my dad providing that personal care, which was, hard, but more comfortable for her,
Right.
versus strangers now providing that personal care. And
Yeah.
so that there was some resistance to care on my dad, but my dad worked around it. He was so wonderful. I look back on, I think of him as being like one of the best examples of a caregiver. He would go there and to the personal care home where she was, and he spent 6 hours a day. He'd arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning, eat breakfast with her, stay until she ate lunch, and then when she'd take a nap, he'd go do his things. But then he'd come back in the evening and have dinner with her until she went to bed. His goal was to be with her as much as he could. He just couldn't be the primary caregiver anymore.
Right.
He needed somebody else to do the heavy lifting. When she became resistant to the water falling on her head in the shower, which was very odd because she had been a shower taker her whole life, he took her twice a week to the salon down the street where they washed her hair for her. And he very, I'm sure it wasn't as seamless of care as it looked like it was, but he made it look good. I've over the years, I've known a lot of caregivers like that. They handle it, at least on the outside, they handle it very well.
Right.
On the inside is a whole nother story in most cases. And it was with my father. Even though he lived for many years after she passed away, it definitely took an emotional and physical toll on him, for sure, as you can well imagine.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. What kind of emotional toll did it take on you and your family when you guys moved her?
Yeah.
What kind of emotional weight came with that?
Gosh, so much. And it wasn't as close to me as I wanted it to be. We as a family, I always said we as a family, we got really lucky in her care journey. A lot of times we came upon what we needed through just resources that you wouldn't normally expect. We found the residential assisted living that she lived at until she passed away for 22 months through my sister-in-law's hairdresser.
So word of mouth referral.
Word of mouth, random, we were looking and just happened to open up a conversation, and that's what happened. But it was an hour 15 for me. So, my Saturdays would look like, not every Saturday, because I had young children. I mean, like when my mom moved into the personal care home, my youngest was in first grade, and my next one was in second grade, and then my oldest was in sixth grade. That's not true. That's where they were when she passed away. They were actually younger than that. So,
oh wow, you had little bitty kids.
yeah. So I think that my journey, and looking back on it, I bore a lot of guilt, just a lot of guilt. I wasn't spending enough time with my young children. I wasn't spending enough time with my mother. I wasn't supporting my father the way I should. Maybe I should be more, maybe I should be doing more for my husband because he was doing so much to support me. Maybe I wasn't always the best employee because I was distracted at times. It's just, sometimes that's what we do to ourselves.
Yeah. And it's just too much.
It is. And I want to say it's unnecessary, but it's unavoidable, I think, too. If you care about the people in your lives, you want to be everything to everyone. It's not possible. But it's something that I don't think I'm alone in that guilty feeling.
Yeah. I think it's kind of built into caregiving of all types. And you were a caregiver for your kids. And you're a caregiver for your mother and for your dad. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So if you were sitting down with a brand new caregiver, somebody who's having to consider this kind of environmental move, What 3 pieces of advice would you offer to somebody who's having to make this decision?
So if you're a caregiver and you're thinking, I this is just not the right environment, we need to move mom or dad into a community. Um, I I think some of the biggest things is, first, don't wait for a crisis to happen to do it. And I know we talked about that a few minutes ago, but it's one of the reasons why I wrote both workbooks, because both of them have their own different elements. But the senior living search workbook, it's okay to go search these places now and get your top, 1, 2, and 3 choices, and tell them, like, look, I'm not moving in anytime soon. So please don't
Yeah.
call me once a month to ask me about this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gathering information.
I'm just gathering information. I need to have a plan in place, and that's, have a plan in place. And second is, you're going to bear that guilt, but don't let it guide your decisions. Let let their needs drive that decision. So going back to when my dad said, well, we said we would never put each other in a place. Okay. But her needs were surpassing that promise. And yes, you're going to carry some guilt with that promise. But if you kind of try to keep yourself focused on the needs and whether or not you are able to meet those needs, then that maybe can help take you off the hook a little bit,
Yeah.
And the other thing I always say, and I said it in my book too, don't get caught up in the pretty chandelier when you walk into the lobby. All the amenities of, that's great. They go and do casino night somewhere once a month, on a bus. They have these wonderful elaborate parties and so forth. Ask your questions. I have in my senior living search workbook, I have 72 questions to ask when you tour a facility.
72.
72.
Well, I mean, that's thorough. I get it. I get it.
Are all of them pertinent to your person that needs care? Maybe not, but they're there. And if it's important, ask the questions. Go through the whole process. You should not feel bad for asking those questions. You should not feel rushed in asking those questions. I said this the other day, and I never really said it out loud, but it's very trwill. This is one of the most financial and emotional decisions that many families will ever have to make. It can surpass what you spend on buying a home. And when you buy a home, you get inspectors, you get appraisals, you walk through the place several times, you walk through with inspectors. You would never consider buying a home without going through all those processes.
Right.
That whole process. You're going to get the AC checked. You're going to get the roof checked, all of the things. Yet, sometimes people in a crisis mode, a lot of times, are forced to make a decision about care for a person that needs it with one quick tour and sign some paperwork and move in.
Right.
Because the hospital's saying, hey, they got a discharge by Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're being rushed out. Yeah.
They're being rushed out. So don't ask your questions. Until you're confident, until you feel like you have exhausted every question that you can think of to ask.
Yeah.
It's okay to ask. And it's okay for them to sit there and tell you. And because the more education, the more transparency we're going to have, the better care we're going to get. Because you're making an informed decision. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then a lot of that guilt is eliminated because you did your research, and maybe the care or the facility, the agency is a better fit because you did that footwork.
And it's okay to go let somebody, when you do move into a facility or you have a caregiver that comes in the home, it's okay to let them do the work. And you go back to being the daughter, or you go back to being the spouse, you go back to being the person that has fun, brings in the milkshake and sits and has a couple hours or an hour or even 30-minute visit. It's okay to
Right.
do that.
Right. That's why you have that help coming to you.
That's why you have that help.
Okay,
Correct.
so you've got a guide to in-home care, and then you've got the
Mhm.
senior living guide. Where can
Yes.
folks connect with you and find the workbooks that you have?
Okay, so one thing before I tell you that, I wanted to let you know that both workbooks have been nominated for an international award. So we were really excited. We were nominated for the Silver Eco and Aging Well International Festival Award, which we will be participating in September. It's very exciting. So we're the only U.S. company that's been invited this year as a nominee. We will have to like pitch to a panel of judges our workbooks and how they help people and that sort of thing. And then there's a festival. It's actually in Cannes, France, so it's in the south of France, and we get to go and be a part of the whole festivities of it all. And we actually get to tour a nursing home in Cannes the next day. So I'm kind of excited
Oh
to
my
go see
gosh.
how it's done internationally. But yes, you can go to our website, which is helpformyparents.com. And on there, and the other key thing I want to really point out is these are provided for free. We do not charge families for this work. It's 112 pages of a workbook. Both of them are the same size, which was done completely by accident. But it's whether so when you get on our website, if you need a copy of the workbook, we can send you a digital version of it. We do have companies that are sponsoring the physical workbooks, and they are taking them to healthcare professionals. They are taking them to, doctor's offices, discharge planning, their churches. They're taking them to churches in their area. So I can always connect somebody with a sponsor if that's something that they need. They can just reach out and let me know that physical workbook would be nice. There's also an ability to do print on demand through Amazon, and I try to keep it as low as cost as possible because I really do want these to be free for families.
Right.
But if you really, really are somewhere where we don't have that availability to get you a free workbook, you can print on demand through Amazon. So it's been wonderful. The reception we've gotten, the words that we've gotten back from not only families who say, thank you so much. This journey is so difficult. It's somebody sent me a message the other day and they called it a rugged journey. And I was like, wow, that's a really good description.
Definitely.
Rugged journey. She was just very thankful to have the resources. I've had physician offices. I had a neurologist reach out to me recently and a PA at another office saying, hey, we need more of these workbooks in our office because they are just, we love being able to have this resource to hand out to families. So
that's awesome.
We love the response we're getting for sure.
Well, congratulations on the award nomination. Good luck in France. And there'll be a link in the show notes for people to go into your website, helpformyparents.com. Amanda, thank you for the work that you're doing and for the time you spent sharing your story with us today.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Heart of Hospice podcast. Check out our sponsor in the show notes and please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends and family and anyone who needs to know more about hospice. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.